Hello and welcome to what I hope can be a comprehensive guide to Clionadh Cosmetics Stained Glass collection. Now, I don't like intros, but there are a few things we need to go over before we get into this, so let's just get that out of the way. Okay, first, this video is not sponsored and I'm not a representative of Clionadh Cosmetics. I did reach out to the brand and let them know I was making this video just to get permission to use images from their website. I also asked if they had anything they thought would be helpful to include to help break down the different categories. And Lee from Clionadh was very kind and sent me over some infographics, and she sent me like their definition of each different category. So I did include those, and I included the infographic. I'm going to pop it on the screen here in case you'd like to take a screenshot. I purchased 46 out of 56 of these shades on my own. 10 of them I did receive in PR as part of the stained glass expansion. This was back in August, and they had sent me a sample of 10 different shades with no obligation to post about them. Also, I do have an affiliate code, and it's just my username Seeking Shifts, and that will save you 6%. I do earn a small commission if you use it, so thank you so much if you do. No pressure whatsoever. There are plenty other creators who also have affiliate codes. So there is one category that's not going to be included in this video, and that's the dimensional multichromes. This was literally just introduced as I was creating this video. It wasn't included in the email that Lee sent to me just because I think it was so new. There's only one shade in the range at this time, I believe. I do plan to pick maybe a few up once the range is expanded, so maybe down the line I will create an updated guide to the stained glass collection. So all of my stained glass shadows, I repanned them into 26mm circle pans because I wanted to. They don't come like that. They come in rectangle pans, which are 24 by 21mm. They're beautiful and satisfying. It's just not how I like to interact with my eyeshadow. Follow Faces by Gina if you want to know more about repanning. Her account is an amazing resource. Also, speaking of Gina, she created Fire Drake Beauty Lab's Universal Palette Builder, which is something I use as a resource for this video, so I want to give credit. I'm going to show you how I used it to help me kind of categorize shadows I was unsure about. So this is on a web browser. On the top I went to where it says filter and I searched for Clionadh. Then I scrolled down a little bit to where it says pan, size, and shape, and I chose irregular. That way it would show just their stained glass shadows, not any of the circle shadows. Then back up at the top I went to sort and chose by color, and that will automatically sort them into a Roy G. Biv order. And then when you hover over each shade, it will show you a bunch more info like this. So I didn't follow Gina's algorithm for everything, but whenever I was not sure, I would go to that and check and see what it says. Alright, that's all for me. Please like and subscribe if you like this type of content, and now we're going to get straight into it. We're going to start by going by each different category of the stained glass collection. Jeweled multichromes. I think these were the first ones Clionadh came out with, but I'm not 100% sure on the lore. So in this comparison chart, they're described as having a black base with a metallic finish. They're completely opaque with a small particle size, and in terms of ease of use, they're described as some practice required, which I definitely agree with. Here's a definition that they sent to me, and I put it on a little infographic with a picture from their website. So, jeweled multichromes, finely milled ultra-rich pigments. These have a black base and intense color-shifting reflex. They're packed with a high pigment concentration, so the end result is a saturated, vibrantly shifting shadow. So these have the most visible shifts. Like, you're going to see every color that they say is there, no problem. The caveat to that is that they are a little bit more difficult to work with because they have a black base. I think that they really only work if you blend them into a matte eyeshadow. That's not always my favorite way to use eyeshadow, so that's a con for me. Another thing is they're the only formula that creases on me. Now let me just say this, I have deep set eyes and I don't normally get creasing, so don't cancel me if something else from this collection creases on you. But yeah, with that being said, my eyelids absolutely devour these after a few hours, so I probably wouldn't wear them like if I was going to work at my 9-to-5 job. I use them more for like Instagram looks or if I'm just planning to use eyeshadow for a short amount of time. And I don't know if this is something unique to Clionadh's jeweled multichromes or if it's like with every black base multichrome. I don't really wear them too often on like a day-to-day basis. So if you have a lot of experience with different black base multichrome formulas, would love to know in the comments if you could help us out. I'm going to swatch all 4 of mine, and then in between each swatch I'll cut to the close-up footage of each shade. Anneal is described as shifting emerald, turquoise, blue, indigo, violet. I feel like this is a little bit less shifty than the other jeweled multichromes I have, but it's pretty unique. I don't think I've ever seen any other black base multichromes that are just like straight up emerald green like this, so I really like it. Rosette is described as indigo, violet, red, orange, gold. I think most brands that do multichromes have some kind of version of this, like Divina, Magnetosphere, Terra Moon's Alter Ego. I don't have those shades, but I've seen my fair share of comparisons, so I know they're dupes, allegedly. Flame Blown is described as indigo, violet, pink, red, orange, gold, lime. Now this one is unique. I don't think I've ever seen any exact dupes to it. If you know of one, let us know in the comments, but it's beautiful. I wish I wore black base multichromes more, because I would love to use this in more looks, but I honestly just enjoy looking at it. Like, look at it. Weld is described as a grungy rose, pink, antique gold, lime, teal, navy. This one's my favorite. Hands down, I freaking love it. I wear it even though it creases on me. Like, it's beautiful. A few people have told me they were surprised by how green it was in person. I don't see that. I feel like on my eyes, it's mostly just like that grungy rose, even almost like purple leaning. Here they all are together. Hopefully the labels line up if you want to take a screenshot. Series 1 Iridescent Multichromes, and I only have one pitiful little guy at the top. These have a translucent base. Iridescent is just like another way to say translucent base, just in case you weren't aware. The finish is a pearlized satin. They have a sheer opacity and the particle size is small. In terms of ease of use, they are described as beginner friendly. Clionadh's description is that these shadows appear muted in the pan but have color shifting reflexes that come to life on the skin. They have a translucent base and a pearlized satin finish, so they work great for many skin tones. So compared to the other two iridescent categories, these are distinctly more smooth and finely milled, and I agree they have like a satin pearlized finish. They remind me of a typical highlighter, but they have shifts. One thing I'll say about these three iridescent categories, there is going to be some overlap in terms of the colors that they shift. The main difference is the texture and finish in them. So if you're someone like me, like an iridescent eyeshadow goblin, like you may find it justified to own the same shifting multichrome pigment in 3 different finishes. However, if you're like an average consumer, don't need 75 iridescent eyeshadows, maybe just determine which formula would be the best fit for you and then choose from that. Reflectance has a translucent base that reflects turquoise, blue, violet, pink. Now, I'm looking at this here and it looks really pretty. Like, I definitely see why there is a market for this type of formula, especially if you're someone who likes good brow bone highlight or inner corner. Like, these are probably a good choice for that. Makes a good face highlight too, at least for my skin tone. It blends in. Series 2 Iridescent Multichromes, I think these are similar colors to the Series 1, just a little more like razzle dazzle, as I said. So these have a translucent base, a high shine finish, sheer opacity, and medium particle size. Now I think there's like a little bit of a range in particle size, but I digress. We'll get to that. In terms of ease of use, they are described as intermediate. I can see that. I can see how they'd be a little bit intimidating just because they're so shiny and reflective. And here's the definition from the brand. These shadows appear white in the pan but have intense color shifting reflex when applied. They have a translucent base and high shine finish. So my notes say that they are more high impact, slick, and shiny than the Series 1 Multichromes. The particle size is a bit larger, but seems to be relatively consistent, so I guess just ignore what I said earlier. They have some sparkle and shine and texture, but overall smooth, shiny finish. And the ones I have are that middle row of 3. Fluoresce. This has a translucent base that shifts turquoise, blue, violet, pink. So you may notice this is like exactly the same description as Reflectance, so that kind of goes back to what I said. I do have a comparison later on in the video. You can see in it that this one is just a lot more high impact and intense. I really enjoy using it and layering it over different colors. Phosphorescent has a translucent base that shifts lime, turquoise, violet, red. Now this is kind of like the green version of Fluoresce. Do you need both? That's up to you. Personally, I do, but it's up to you. They are pretty similar. I mean, maybe you could pick whether you like teal or green more. Luxe has a translucent base that reflects yellow, lime, turquoise, violet. So I see way more shifts in that. I see blue, I see pink, maybe even a little peach going on. Now listen, if you have any iridescent multichromes, you might have a dupe to this. It's a very, very common iridescent shade. If you don't have any dupes, it might be worth investing in this one if you're gonna pick just one. I'll tell you why. It's because A lot of the shades in the Clionadh Stained Glass collection have these same shifts, so you can replicate them by layering Luxe over a different base. Here are all 3 of my Series II Iridescent Multichromes swatched together, so you can screenshot if you'd like. Alright folks, we're in the Glitter Iridescent Multichrome zone. These have a translucent base, glitter finish, sheer opacity, large particle size, and in terms of ease of use, they're described as having some practice required. The brand's description is featuring a translucent base and sparkly finish that reflects intense color shifts when applied to the skin. I feel like that wasn't a complete sentence. These shadows are multi-purpose and work great for a wide range of skin tones. Yep, you guessed right. This is my favorite category. I love them. Now, I feel like this should be kind of broken down into 2 subcategories because I find that there is some like regular glitter multichromes, and then there's like the chunky, textured, crunchy. I don't know if they're crunchy, don't eat them, but they're distinctly more flaky than the first category. So the way you can kind of determine what's in which category I found is by how expensive they are. The ones that are like insanely chunky, textured, flaky are the more expensive ones. Also, because of the particle size, they have more visible shifts. I have all but one glint, which I think was out of stock when I was placing my order during the restock. I think it was Cecily who told me that glint is the sparkly, glittery version of Luxe. Oh, also, glitter doesn't mean like actual glitter, like a pressed glitter. It just means like sparkle particles. Glow has a translucent base that reflects turquoise, blue, violet. This one's like a very, very vibrant, I think it's more like a blue leaning teal than like a green leaning teal, if that makes sense. It's really pretty. I like to layer this over different stuff a lot. I feel like it's the shiniest one out of all of them. Glimmer has a translucent base that reflects blue, indigo, violet. Now I like this one because it's just like a straight up blue, which I find a lot of times with iridescents, they're either like very indigo purple leaning blues or very teal leaning blues. But to me, this just reads like a true primary blue with shifts. Glisten has a translucent base that reflects violet, pink, orange, gold. I always think of this as like a blue leaning purple, almost an indigo, but now that I'm looking at this swatch, it does look like a true purple. This is really similar to a shade called Soda Swamp in the Divina Sugar Drops collection, and I got this to fill the void because they were out of stock for a year. Next up we have Gleam, which has a translucent base that reflects pink, orange, yellow. This is probably my least favorite, and it's not to say there's anything wrong with it, but I feel like I have dupes of this from other brands and they're sold as a duochrome, so I feel like calling this a multichrome is a stretch. Also, it's pretty thick and not in like a textured delicious way, but it's almost like bulky. Gloaming has a silvery iridescent base that reflects pink, orange, yellow, lime. Now this is what I'm talking about. Like, this is what I came here for. It has a large particle size and it has a bunch of different colored sparkles in it. When you see it in the pan, it looks almost silver. This one takes a little finessing to apply it unless you're into like a super thick layer of eyeshadow on your eye. I mean, you do you, but for me, I like to just try to apply it as thin as possible, or kind of like tap it on or apply it with like a very flimsy brush. Last but not least, we have Gilding, which has a translucent base that reflects bright gold, silver, green, turquoise. Okay, this one goes crazy. Like, are you seeing this swatch? This one is definitely the most intimidating out of all the glitter iridescent multichromes. This has a lot of the same characteristics as Gloaming, but like more intense. I remember when I first got it, I messaged Clionadh and I was like, please tell me you have other shades like this. They said Gloaming is the only thing that's close and it's not quite as like intense. Here are all the glitter iridescents together with a label. I'm just going to leave this up for a minute in case you'd like to take a screenshot or just see how they compare. Alright, next up we have the Deep Iridescent Multichromes, and I only have 2 of these. They have a tan base with a metallic finish, sheer opacity, small particle size, and they are, in terms of ease of use, they are intermediate. The brand describes them as, these shadows have a tan base with bright color shifting reflex, an ideal option for medium to deep skin tones since they do not have since they do not leave a white cast, which is commonly seen with iridescent shadows. So I can't really speak to this because I have the skin complexion of 2% milk, but I would be curious to know if you do have a medium to deep skin tone, do you prefer using like the deep iridescent type shades over regular iridescents? And how much of a white cast does a regular iridescent eyeshadow leave on you? I would love to know in the comments. So my notes, at least for the ones that I have, I describe them as a smooth satin-like finish, kind of like the Series 1 iridescent. So they originally had 5 shades, I believe, and for 4 of them, I had exact dupes from Terra Moons. So I didn't end up picking those up, but I know with the expansion, they added a lot of shades, including the one they gifted me, Saffron. The new shades look to be all pretty unique. I find my footage live swatching these, but I live swatch everything again when I show you them grouped by color. Saffron has a yellow tan base with red, peach, yellow shifts. This one they sent me in PR. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought to pick it up. I really enjoy it. I feel like it's unique in that it's like very yellow, but also goes to like hot pink and peach. Azure is a medium cool tan base that shifts teal, blue, purple. This one's just kind of meh. I don't really use it too often. I'll probably declutter it eventually, but I mean it's pretty for what. Glitter Multichromes. This one is going to be a doozy. So these have colored bases. They have a glitter finish with varying opacity, varying particle size, and it says that they have some practice required. I think that kind of depends on which one specifically you're talking about. Some are definitely easier to use than others. So these are described as highly versatile shadows with varying levels of base color saturation and particle size. Apply them on their own for an intense sparkling effect, or layer them over other shadows for extra dimension. So in my notes, I say they are generally more inexpensive than other categories. I don't know if that's because they use less like multichrome pigment or what, but they're also not as shifty as other categories because the emphasis is more on the different textures, finish, and sparkle. We're starting off with a banger. This is Opulent. It has a warm purple-brown base, almost rose gold, with medium glitter particles that shift orange, gold, green, turquoise. This one is kind of like a cult favorite in the spicy neutral community. It's very similar to Luxe. You know how I was explaining that some shades can be replicated by using Luxe over a different base? It has those same shifts, but the base color is really unique, literally flattering on everyone. Blaze has a sheer orange base with medium glitter particles that shift peach, gold, lime. I think if you've never tried like a duochrome or multichrome from an indie brand, I would recommend trying Blaze. I think it's pretty like universal. Most people will like this. Blaze has a pigmented copper base with medium glitter particles that shift red, orange, gold. I think if you're looking for an inexpensive red multichrome, like a fiery red eyeshadow, you would like this. It's probably my least favorite red from Clionadh, but it is gorgeous. Like I can't deny that. Grisaille has a semi-pigmented terracotta base with medium glitter particles that shift turquoise, indigo, violet, pink. This eyeshadow is one of my top recommendations from any category. Honestly, any indie brand, any eyeshadow ever, I would recommend Grisaille. You should have it in your collection if you are into this type of shade. Like, it's so wet looking, but also kind of grungy in a way, but also so sophisticated and beautiful and unique. Oh my god, I love it so much. Abrasion has a semi-sheer burgundy base with large glitter particles that shift turquoise, indigo, violet. This is almost like a deeper, cooler tone version of Grisaille. Maybe a little more muted in the base too. I think if you pick either of those up, you will be happy with your purchase. And here is the first group of glitter multichromes all swatched together. Corrosion has a semi-sheer orange base with medium to large glitter particles that shift lime, turquoise, blue. Natasha Denona could never! I have the gold palette and I would throw it in the trash before I got rid of this shade because it is so dimensional and beautiful and special. Like, it's just a perfect gold. Chandelier has a sheer, pale, mustard yellow base with small glitter particles that shift turquoise, indigo, violet, pink. This was the first Clionadh shade that I hit pan on, and it's not necessarily the most unique shade. Like, it's similar to a lot of other shades in this category, but something about that like kind of grungy but soft base makes me keep wanting to use it all the time. Carving has a sheer grungy light brown base with medium to large glitter particles that shift turquoise, indigo, violet, pink. This is like the slightly deeper, grungier version of Chandelier, and it's very wearable. I don't like that term, but I think it communicates what I'm trying to say here. Like Carol from accounting isn't going to give you a double take if you wear this to your office job. Ripple has a sheer aqua green base with large glitter particles that shift turquoise, indigo, violet. So this is like a similar concept to the two shades I just showed you, but it has a more colorful base. This particular tone of like aqua green I find is not very flattering on me, so I don't wear this too often, but it is pretty. It reminds me of like a mermaid fairy princess. Ciel has a semi-pigmented sky blue base with large glitter particles that shift gold, green, blue. So they did reformulate this in the expansion. So mine is going to look a little different than the one that is currently available for sale. I'm not sure exactly what they changed about this, but every time I wear this, I'm like, oh my god, this is so pretty. And here's the second group of glitter multichromes all swatched together. Etched has a semi-opaque, cool purple base with a blue, indigo, violet, pink shifts. This one is really vibrant. It almost has like a UV-like quality to it. I use it a lot when I'm doing more colorful cool tone looks. I feel like it packs a lot of punch without much effort. Enamel has a semi-sheer lavender base with small glitter particles that shift blue, violet, pink. This looks really similar to Edge here, I'm not even gonna lie. I see it as more of like a purple shade, and on my skin tone, it looks a lot deeper than how it looks on like literally everyone else's skin tone. I don't know why that is, but every time I see someone else swatch it, it looks almost like sheer and very light, and here it's like kind of mid-tone and opaque looking. Glazed has a sheer lilac base with large glitter particles that shift pink, orange, gold. This is another one of my top recommendations from the Stained Glass collection. It's just so dreamy and it's pretty unique. I don't have anything quite like this. Like, it's kind of cool tone, but it also shifts very warm and it just looks so beautiful on the eyes every time. Glaziers Mark has a sheer orange base with medium glitter particles that shift indigo, violet, pink, orange. So here I'm swatching the original Glaziers Mark, which I purchased myself, and then in the expansion I was gifted the updated version. It's actually funny because the original Glaziers Mark was probably my least favorite shade from the Stained Glass collection, but the updated version is one of my absolute favorites. Like, I use it literally all the time. It's very similar, like the closest shade I have to that one Blitz Astral shade in the Utopian Dream palette, you know, the purple one, I forget the name. And here is the third group of glitter multichromes swatched together. Engrave has a semi-sheer brown base with large glitter particles that shift lilac, pink, orange, gold. This is one I think you can probably pass on unless you just really like it from the swatch, but there are similar shades in this collection that I think have the same concept but are executed much better. Kaleidoscope has a semi-sheer pink base with small medium glitter particles that shift lime, turquoise, blue, pink. This is like a pink eyeshadow for people who don't like pink because that base is like very, very sheer. You really only see the blue when you apply it, and then it does shift to pink. You can see like at the very end. Sunbeam has a sheer pink base with small medium glitter particles that shift pale, gold, lime, turquoise. This one is also very similar to a shade in the Utopian Dream palette. I forget the name of that one as well, but it's like the sparkly Blitz Astral shade that's like pink to gold. It's definitely a softer shade and I find myself coming back to it a lot because it can be used for a lot of different purposes. Here is the final group of the glitter multichromes swatched together. Alright, next up we have the vibrant multichromes. These have a colored base, shimmered finish, moderate opacity, small particle size, and in terms of ease of use, they are described as intermediate. They're described by the brand as shadows with colorful bases and bright, shifting reflex. These deliver an impactful, multidimensional finish. And in my notes I say they tend to have a pretty uniform particle size, as in they are somewhat textured and sparkly, but mostly they have a smooth, shiny finish. The ones that I have are all relatively opaque, as in if you do a look and then you layer one of these on top of it, it's going to cover up everything underneath, as opposed to some of the other categories, like a lot of the glitter multichromes we just went over, they're not as opaque, so some of that look will show through. I also say in my notes that the emphasis seems to be more on having a high impact vibrant color rather than being shifty. And that's not to say that there are no visible shifts, but I think it's like a color theory thing. If you have a really vibrant base, like if you have a really vibrant blue and it shifts blue, teal, green, you know what I mean? It's not going to show up as much as if it's over like a gray or black base. I hope that makes sense. That's something I've seen from a few people, like a criticism of the Vibrant Multichrome collection, just with certain shades, because you'll see some of these are an exception to the rule. But honestly, I just don't think for certain colors it's possible to have them so opaque and vibrant while also having so many visible shifts. First up, we have Bloodline, and this has a burgundy berry base that shifts gold, green, turquoise, blue, purple. This one is definitely a cult favorite, especially back in the day before the expansion. Like, there were, I feel like at one point they said there was over 1,000 people that had this on their wish list. This is also another one in the Luxe family. It has those same gold, green, teal, blue, purple shifts. Royalty has a grape purple base that shifts pink, gold, green, turquoise, blue, purple. This is another one in the Luxe family. I'm sure you just heard that in the shifts. This is definitely a staple purple for me. I do use it a lot. It's also very similar to a shade called Regal from the Glitter Vibrant Multichromes, but this is much more purple while Regal is more indigo. Crown Jewel has a bright blue base that shifts gold, turquoise, blue. I actually think this is part of the Luxe family as well, but it's not as immediately apparent because of how vibrant and blue the base is. This is just a fun shade. I did a post last year where I did 4 looks with it, and I just really enjoyed like getting creative and using it in different ways. Lineage has a mint base that reflects pearly pink, gold, lime. This is definitely the most approachable of all the vibrant multichromes. If you're someone who wants to get into using more colors but is maybe intimidated by like the bright, vibrant blue I just showed you, this would be a good place to start. It's also pretty smooth and easy to work with. Topiary has a mid-tone green base with peach, gold, aqua shifts. I received this in PR as part of the expansion, and honestly, I wouldn't have picked this up based on pictures online. I'm just kind of sick of this tone of green, but I was surprised. I really, really like this in person. I feel like there's something special and kind of unique about it with that peach shift that isn't like a straight up peach, if that makes sense. And here are all my vibrant multichromes swatched together. Alright, next up we have the Glitter Vibrant Multichromes. So these, the base is colored, the finish is glitter, the opacity is opaque, large particle size, and for ease of use it says some practice required. The brand describes this as, this formula is a combination of our favorite things, bright colors and glittery finishes. A must try for those who love textured shadows. And in my notes I say there's some range in particle size, but overall they're much more textured and chunky than the vibrant multichromes. And some resemble the chunkier glitter iridescents in texture, like Gloaming and Gilding that I showed you earlier. So because of the larger particle size, a lot of times you'll see more of a visible shift, even though the base is opaque and vibrant, if that makes sense. And honestly, I could just be pulling that out of my ass about like the base having a role in how vibrant the shifts are, but it makes sense to me. Empress has a pink red base with pink, peach, gold, lime shifts. So at some point before the expansion, the brand posted like a bunch of this shade in a palette, and it just looked absolutely insane. I knew I had to pick it up, and I'm really happy with it. This is also in the Luxe family, but I think it's just really unique. Noble has a warm violet base with pink, peach, lime, aqua shifts. This one, the texture is kind of hard to describe. Like, I feel like the particle size is not as large as Regal or Empress, but it also feels more textured. So it's kind of bizarre. It's a lot warmer than Royalty, but it's similar. I'll compare them later. Also, this is one of the 10 I was gifted for the expansion. Regal has an indigo base with large glitter particles that ship gold, lime, turquoise. When I placed my first Clionadh order, I didn't include this. I was going back and forth because I didn't know if it would be too similar to Royalty. And when I tell you that lived in my head rent-free for an entire year, I regretted not picking it up so much. Because yeah, they do look kind of similar, but the vibe and the texture is so different. I will do like a close-up comparison, like I said, later on in this video. This one is much more like blue indigo leaning compared to Royalty, which is more of a true purple. Here are the 3 Glitter Vibrant Multichromes swatched together. Next up, Hybrid Multichromes. These have a neutral base, shimmer finish, moderate opacity, medium particle size, and for ease of use, they are described as intermediate. They're described as shimmery multichrome eyeshadows with jewel-toned reflex. They're buildable to allow for a slight wash of sparkle over the lid or to transform shadows, but can also be packed on for full saturation. They're very versatile and they work great for all ages and skin tones. So I think of these as like the light version, as an LITE version of jeweled multichromes. I feel like there's probably a match for each one of these to one of the jeweled multichromes. I just don't have like the full collection of each. For my style and preference and skill level, I prefer this formula like 100 times over the jeweled multichrome formula. So in my notes, I say these are best for people who are interested in the jeweled multichromes but are intimidated by them or don't think they would realistically use them. I also say the base is not fully opaque, so they can easily be worn on their own without having to be blended into a matte shadow. So if you remember when I was talking about the jeweled multichromes, I said that because they have such a prominent black base, they really do need to be like blended into a matte eyeshadow because it's not going to blend out gracefully on its own. So if you're the type of person who likes to use a lot of mattes and like build this beautiful blend and, you know, layer something on top of it, you may prefer the jeweled multichromes, but for me, like, I don't have that skill. I'm not interested in acquiring that skill. Like, I just like things that are easy and simple and fun. So yeah, it really comes down to preference and style and what you think you would realistically use more. Embroidery has a gray base with small medium glitter particles that shift lime, blue, purple. This one I wasn't really interested in at first, but I saw both Faces by Gina and Addicted to Sparkly Things had really positive things to say about it. I ended up picking it up last year. I'm really glad I did. It's definitely a special green. It's got some grunge to it. I like how it has those like typical Beetle tones like green, blue, teal, but it's not as in-your-face vibrant. It's a little murky, a little nuanced. Queen's Banquet has a brown base with magenta, peach, lime shifts. I believe this was first available in like a mystery bag, not last year, 2021, because I remember seeing a few people had it and I was like, how did you get that? And I believe this is the hybrid equivalent to Smolder, which is a really popular jeweled shade. This one I was gifted for the expansion. So this like magenta, gold, lime type of shift is like the default. Like if you have a Natasha Denona or Pat McGrath palette with a multichrome in it, it's gonna be similar to this, but using a Clionadh shadow is just a very different experience. So I'm not saying you need to run out and get this if you already have something similar in your collection, but I definitely reached for this over the multichromes in those palettes. Mosaic has a brown base with small glitter particles that shift pink, orange, gold, lime. I feel like I never see anyone talk about how insanely shiny and vibrant and shifty and gorgeous this is. So I'm here to tell you it's all of those things. Like, I was not prepared when I saw it in person. It's like next level. Like, I like all the hybrid multichromes, but this one just literally knocked my socks off. Eris has a burnt orange base with medium glitter particles that shift orange, yellow, lime. This is another one I bought because I saw Addicted to Sparkly Things talking about it, and she said it's similar to Burnt Sienna, which is a deep iridescent. I have the Terra Moon's equivalent, which is now discontinued, but in any event, she said it was similar to that, but with texture and sparkle in it. This is a really good spicy neutral adjacent shade. I feel like I'm reluctant to wear oranges just because everything pulls orange on my skin tone. So I'm like, why am I going to wear orange on purpose? But when I do want an orange moment, I do reach for this one. Here are the 4 hybrid multichromes swatched together. Pastel Multichromes. These have a gray base, pearlized satin finish, moderate opacity, and small particle size. They're beginner friendly for ease of use. The brand's description is, these shadows feature a soft gray base with pearlized luminous reflex. The sheerness of their base makes them an ideal office friendly multichrome. These tend to get overlooked a lot, at least in the circles I run in, because you know they're up against these insanely sparkly, shifty, vibrant other categories, but I think They are beautiful and unique in their own way, and I think there's definitely someone who this is like their perfect eyeshadow. So in my notes, I say they're very flattering on the eyelid. They would be a great option for someone who has more mature lids and wants to avoid textured shadows. So the finish on my eyelids, at least, it's like airbrush on your eyelids. Like any texture is just very smoothed out and it looks great. Like whenever I catch myself in the mirror, I'm like, wow, that looks good. And I say these are beautiful in a subtle, more refined way. The small details are what makes them truly special. And like I said, I think people are prone to think that like the most eye-catching thing is the most beautiful thing. And like I get that because I have the brain of a magpie. But if you look at these like without that context, like just on their own, you can see how truly unique and special they are. Keystone has a gray base that shifts green, blue, indigo. I feel like the green in this is very unique. It's almost like a sagey, grungy mint. I think this would be great for someone who's only really comfortable with neutrals, but you want to have like a little pop of color in your collection. This is a very approachable, colorful shade. Tower has a cool gray base that shifts blue, purple, pink. Again, I feel like this tone of blue is just very unique and sophisticated. It almost reminds me of something you would see in like a luxury eyeshadow palette. Like one of those quads or quints that has cool tones. Like I could definitely see this tone being in there, but obviously this is way better and way shiftier. Turret has a neutral gray base that shifts lilac, pink, orange, gold. I slept on this one for sure. It wasn't until I got the Natasha Denona Trio Chrome palette and I started to get really into that like smooth finish of multichrome that I even thought to purchase any of these. But this one is kind of like on another level than the others. Like you can see in this swatch, it's just way shiftier and it has that like pastel grunge vibe that all the others have. Cathedral has a grungy olive gray base that shifts pink, peach, gold. This is definitely spicy neutral territory, and this is the one I wanted most out of the pastels. I feel like this eyeshadow is like the entire Natasha Denona mini retro palette in one shadow. Something about that like olive green to pink to peach gold gets me every single time. Like I have so many shadows like that, but I keep wanting more. I just think it's so beautiful. Here they are all swatched together. Okay, so we're on to the expansion category. So I don't have that original infographic anymore, but this is the Earth Vibrant Multichromes. And the description is, these eyeshadows have subdued earth tone bases and bright shifting reflex. They are your perfect neutrals with a twist. In my notes, I say these are spicy neutrals in muted colors. The texture and finish reminds me of the Vibrant Multichromes, so they have like a small to medium particle size. They're moderately opaque and they have a shimmer finish with some sparkle and texture. Obviously, the biggest difference being that these bases are muted and subdued as opposed to being vibrant. Cobblestone has a grungy gray base with icy pink, peach, gold shifts. This is one that I was gifted for the expansion and I'm so glad they sent it to me because it's become one of my all-time favorite eyeshadows. It's actually very similar to Cathedral, like they have the same tones. This one's just a little more textured, more reflective and shiny. I will compare them a little later on in the video. Royal Plum has a dusty plum base with pink, gold, lime, aqua shifts. This one I think is one of the most beautiful eyeshadows in my collection to look at it. I find I don't wear it too often just because my taste right now, I'm more into like lighter, less opaque shadows, but I can't deny that it is like a beautifully muted, grungy purple eyeshadow with a twist. Hedge Maze has a slate gray base with gold, lime, teal shifts. This one I was also sent in PR, and this has actually become another one of my favorite shadows in my collection. It's definitely one of my top favorite greens ever. It's just very unique, and again, I want to sound like a broken record, but it's a little grungy, nuanced. It's got that slate gray base, but then it has that warm like olive green to emerald green to blue shift, and it just looks so beautiful on the eyes. And here they are all swatched together. Here's another expansion category. This is the Electric Multichromes. These are described as a collection of bright and pastel toned eyeshadow and artist pigments with intense colored shifts. Though they may resemble some of our vibrants, the formula is completely unique. So in my notes I say, they're very smooth and finely milled, they feel silky to the touch and thin. They have a reflective, shiny, high impact finish on the eyes. And I remember when Clionadh reached out to me about sending me a few shades for the expansion, they mentioned that with the Electric Multichromes, some of them, like one of the ingredients in them may cause staining on the eyes, which is a very common thing with pressed pigment eyeshadows. So I wanted to go back and find some more information on that just for anyone who's curious. I did find this on their website. I think it's listed under all of the Electric Multichrome, like the pages for them. It says Cinder, Flash Glass, Niello, Oriel, Quest, and Signet are artist pigments and made with cosmetic safe ingredients that are approved for eye use in Europe, but not Canada and the US. Again, this is not something that's unique to Clionadh, but I just wanted to include that, put it out there for anyone who might be concerned. I mean, it's up to you to do your own research and do your due diligence, make sure it's something you feel comfortable using. Personally, I haven't had any staining on my eyes, and even if I did, that's not really an issue for me. I don't really care. Like, it's gonna wash off eventually, but if it's an issue for you, that's valid, and just know that going into it. Signet is a pink base with pink peach chartreuse shifts. And this one again is in that Luxe family of shifts. You can probably see in this swatch right here. This type of multichrome, like the pink that almost looks like a rainbow, is pretty common. I have a version of this from a few different brands, but this one definitely is unique. Like, it stands on its own against the others. It's a vibrant pink, but it somehow almost reads as like a baby pink on the eyes. Emblem is a turquoise base with pearly pink peach lime shifts. This one has similar vibes to Lineage, but the base is not as opaque and it's way more intense in terms of like the shifts, and I will compare them later on, but this one is just like insane. It reminds me of a like smooth version of the Cosmos or Big Dipper from Terra Moons, and honestly I sometimes prefer reaching for this over those shades just because it's so smooth and effortless to work with. Here are my two Electric Multichromes swatched together. We made it to the last category that I own, and this is my one Pearlescent Multichrome. The brand's description is, with a smooth texture and pearly finish, these blush neutrals are perfect for everyday wear for all ages and skin tones. And in my notes I say it's a very unique formula. I don't have anything quite like this from any brand, whether indie or mainstream or high end. And it's also very flattering on the eyes. It has a similar effect to the Pastel Multichromes, and the main difference is that the Pearlescent Multichrome is a bit more reflective. The texture is very smooth and silky, and it has a small particle size, so it's very refined. It picks up easily with a brush, and I've tried it with quite a few different brushes with no issues. And it can be applied with a finger, and generally you'll have the same outcome whether you use a brush or you apply it with your finger. Renaissance has a cool pink base with orange, peach, yellow shifts. This is the last of the shades that Clionadh gifted me for the expansion, and it has similar vibes like in the colors as Signet, but it's much more muted and cool tone in the base, and the finish is very different as I described, but these two I do compare later on so you can see how they look against each other. All of the Pearlescent Multichromes, they look really similar to me on the website. I mean, I'm sure they're different in person, but I just can't really speculate about how they differ based on what I've seen. And here's this one lonely swatch so you can see more footage of how it looks. Okay, look at this cool effect I learned how to do. Anyway, I'm going to swatch these by color, and I'm not going to talk during this part because I've already put more hours into this video than I put into my full-time job this week, so I'm a little bit exhausted. But I will come back and talk more when I compare like similar shades. Okay, now I'm going to swatch similar shades, and I realized as I was going to edit this that all of the footage I took was blurry and completely out of focus. So I went and redid it all on my phone, so that's why there is a difference in quality. First up is Gilding versus Luxe, and Gilding is definitely more of a gold leaning shade, while Luxe is more like goldish green. Gilding is also very textured, flaky, and sparkly, while Luxe is more smooth and shiny. Here's Royalty versus Regal, and Royalty is definitely more purple, as I've stated before, while Regal is more indigo. Royalty has a similar texture to Luxe, and Regal has a more similar texture to Gilding, just not as quite as chunky as Gilding. Here is Ciel versus Crown Jewel. They're both a similar tone of blue, but Crown Jewel is deeper and more vibrant. And again, this is the original Ciel, so I don't know what differences the new one has. I assume it's relatively similar, but again, this is just the original. Here's Emblem on top versus Lineage on the bottom, and with Emblem, the base is not as prominent, but it's more shifty and reflective. With Lineage, you see more of that like soft tealish blue base. Cobblestone is on top and Cathedral's on the bottom, and these two have very similar tones, but Cobblestone is more reflective and bright appearing, while Cathedral is more like of a satin finish and it reads deeper. Okay, here Renaissance is on top and Signet is on the bottom, and they both have that similar tone of pink in the base. However, Signet has a lot more visible shifts and Reflectance is more like emphasis on that beautiful finish. Here's Turret and Royal Plum, and they have a similar tone of purple. Royal Plum looks a little warmer actually, but obviously the shifts are very different in these two, and the finish of Royal Plum is a little bit more shiny. Okay, and here are 3 glitter multichromes. Glaziers Mark, the new one, Enamel, and Etched. Glaziers Mark is the most purple, and Etched is the most blue indigo leaning. Glaziers Mark and Etched have a very similar texture and finish, and Enamel is a bit more of like a smooth finish, and they all have that like UV type quality to them. Last up, Embroidery and Hedge Maze. These are pretty similar, but Hedge Maze is a little bit cooler leaning, a little bit more bright on the eyes, and it is more reflective in the finish. Okay, and these are all the shades that I refer to as being in the Luxe family. I swatched them all together, so hopefully you can see what I'm talking about. They have the same shifts, but obviously over different bases. With color theory, they're going to appear a little bit different. Thanks for watching. I hope this video was helpful. It was a big project and I'm really proud of the final outcome. If you didn't like it, just keep it to yourself. If you somehow found my YouTube channel before you found my Instagram, please consider following me there. And also, if you do make a purchase from Clionadh, please consider using my affiliate code. It really helps me out, but no pressure. There's plenty of creators who have affiliate codes. Just use one so you can get a discount. Okay, bye. See you in my next video.